How do I find my way back to love? This is a question that was asked on the Absolutely Everything Pass that led to what might be the highest vibration one-on-one I've ever seen. I want to share with you a one-on-one that we just did that I promise you will bring release and healing and so many revelations when you meet Susan, someone who's not in a relationship and feels a lot of loneliness and is under an illusion. And I'll let you watch the hot seat and see what the illusion is. And wait till you see what happens when Susan has a realization and moves into a place of magical oneness. The only thing I'm going to request of you before you see this is please make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel and enjoy this one-on-one that I promise you will shift many things in your heart and in your life. Enjoy.
I love this question so much, and I know you guys do too because it's voted to the top here. But it's a question I think that we all need all the time, and I'm so excited. And I'm going to even probably offer that just the first question is the title of this, but the question that I see is, how do I find my way back to love? I think I have forgotten I was loved. I often feel alone and lonely, truly want more love in my life, but maybe I, on some level, don't think I deserve it before my life is in order. Can I be loved just the way I am? Why do I feel emotions already? Reading your question, I might be with you in this one a lot. Let's bring Susan on and let's be open to the depth of this question. It's really nice to not have it be only a circumstantial question. It's more about really the deepest question that we're asking and that we all want. We have these circumstances and we go, how do I get more money? How do I get my husband to get me? How do I get, my wife to understand, my mom to whatever? But I think that I love this question so much because I think this is the best question. It's such a good question. It's getting right to the root of what we're really trying to get to, right? And so I really like this question because it's a question that is the highest question. And I think we get so much more power and joy and healing when we ask a higher question. Most people are, how do I get this so I have this? How do I find love so I can get the relationship? I mean, everything is all still a little bit of ego control. And I think there's a beautiful surrender in this. So thank you for asking this, Susan. So happy to have you today.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Very nervous.
Where are you coming in from?
Norway.
Norway. Awesome. Well, you will all feel emotions just at the level of that question. I want to offer everyone to ask that question out loud too. Maybe that's the deepest question we really have under all of our other questions, right? How do I find my way back to love? Everyone feel free to ask that too. Maybe this is a really high intention, magical healing episode. So talk to me about what brought this question on, Susan.
I'm so nervous. My heart is like pounding out.
I bet it's probably so the most seen with that question.
Thank you. What brought this on? That's a good question. I think something happened a couple of years ago. I got very sick, and I can see now that a lot of things needed to fall apart because my life wasn't what I wanted. I got sick. I've been struggling with a little bit depression, a lot of anxiety. My work fell away. My health has been bad. So I feel I just lost myself. And then my relationship ended. And I just got in a place where I feel very, very lonely because so much is happening to me. And or I mean, like, I don't know, processing so much or evolving or so I just lost the love for myself, and I can't feel the love anymore, not with a partner, not not like from anyone. I think it's just, yeah.
Well, maybe the way that you were seeking it was, which was the highest you knew. It's and was wonderful. It was through a partner. It was through different experiences and stuff like that. Maybe some of those ways, even though with a partner and friend can be a great way, maybe there's some attachment falling off. So, and in doing so, what you find inevitably is that the reason we're kind of lost in it is that we actually are love, and we have developed our own energy that's separate from love, and we have created this us that is running the show and orchestrating love how it's decided. It's finding it through attachment, connection, and different things. And one of the things that might be trying to fall away is a thing that you might think is you, but is actually a construct that chases "don't leave me," or "don't abandon me," or "please see me," or "please understand me," and believes those are the routes to love.
Yeah.
And maybe the universe and life and the real you is starting to show up and go, "Hey, just so you know, you can have love, you can have a loving relationship, you can have all these things, but I want you to get that the highest source of love is not outside of you. And I want to make those things collapse. I want to make those things go for a second so that you find that you're loved, even if your circumstances aren't going the way you wanted. You start to realize, were they even my circumstances, or were they a construct that decided what circumstances should be to protect itself?"
Yeah.
Take a deep breath in for a second and release it. Tell me what's here right now.
It resonates what you're saying, and I guess that's what I'm feeling when everything is falling off me. I feel like very naked and like more me probably, but I think that's very scary. And I think that's like stuff I don't maybe want to see.
Yes.
I don't know. I think I'm afraid like that I'm not good enough. That I'm gonna see that I'm not good enough, that everybody else is gonna see that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things you said, the first thing you said was, you know, there's a feeling of almost naked, right? And I would offer naked also another word, I think, that, tell me if you agree with this word, is exposed.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what exposed is. Exposed is seen, but judging that you're seen. In other words, you're seen. And maybe what's being exposed is actually you getting closer to you. And what's against that is a character you created to prevent you from being truly seen. And the number one thing the character doesn't want to be seen by is the real you.
Yeah.
See, if other people truly see you, you have the ability to get away from them, or shooting down what they see, or blocking it. When you finally see you, the one that has been designed to protect you from being seen dies. So it's actually scared of the love that you are, because there's a you that's actually just love, and a character you created necessarily because you didn't know any higher, that was designed to protect you from being seen and receiving that you're loved.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
that is losing its control. Our characters that were designed to protect, but really what it protects from also is the light and love, is dying right now. Also, our characters that say we're loved for a circumstance are dying too. We're loved when we get an outcome we want. right? So that's a thing that goes, I want to be the earner of my love. So I have to start with the idea that there's no love here. Like literally, our ego is created out of I'm not loved.
Mm.
So it also has a very I fend for myself energy, right? The ego has this very so I get love, I lose love, and I'll live in the fantasy or the fear of the future and ignore the love that I am right here. That character is losing its grip.
Mm.
And it's really big that we just have an awareness that's what's happening, because that'll make this much easier. And if we believe this shouldn't be happening, then we are acting as the character that's dying. So this totally feels like death.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like I'm fighting it because it's painful to be
Mhm.
where I am right now.
Mhm.
So I'm like trying to figure out all the time, like why is this happening?
Mm.
What is happening?
Do
I
you
don't
think
want it
it's,
to be happening.
check this out. Do you think it's painful to be where you are right now? Or do you think it's painful to resist where you are right now?
Can it be both?
No.
No.
Just kidding. Well, let's actually really extrapolate it. Let's look at it for a second. Tell me where you are right now that you don't like. Tell me the
Um,
circumstance that you're in or the situation.
yeah, I'm alone.
Okay.
I live alone, and I don't have a husband or a boyfriend or
Hmm.
a love like that in my life.
So check this out. So right now the circumstance is there's currently not a currently not a physical man in your life that you can see right now,
Mhm.
right? I just want you to really hear that. There very well could be, that's just not in the room with you yet. There very well could be, right? And in so many different ways. But also, I just, before we even go into that, because basically in that point, I'm saying it might not be true that you're not, it just might not have happened yet, or you might not have aligned to receive it. But then there's also this other energy that has a meaning of what that means. Even if it's true that you're not married right now, that you don't have a husband right now, there's a meaning you give that. There's good, bad. This means I'm alone. There's even deeper subconscious stuff. This means I'm unlovable. This means
Mhm.
I'm unwanted. This means whatever. For some people, mom said, I told you so, or, or I'll become like one of my parents, or I'll become the opposite of what I decided. There's all kinds of meanings. So right now, you're just not physically currently in a relationship or married. What does that mean to you?
It means I don't know. It means so much, actually.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, and this is big for everyone. So before I even go into the next part, everyone take in a circumstance you're triggered by, a thing that is happening or bothering you, a situation in your life you don't like. There's the situation as it is. Her situation is she's currently not married. But the next question I have is, what is the meaning that you're giving it? Because this is where the pain is. Because there's so many other meanings it could be, right? You could have so many different meanings. It could mean I'm able to meet myself. It could mean I'm actually healing. It could mean, oh, I can see the patterns in my body that are coming to light. So I'm going to look at it and go to a new frequency. It could mean absolutely nothing. It could mean he's on the way. It could mean you don't want it. It could mean like, right? There's so many things. And so what causes a meaning is the character we created, right? That the character that the ego is, There's a way that it thinks. And it doesn't exist if you don't have a problem. So it has to give a negative meaning.
Mm.
And by the way, every positive meaning that an ego gives is almost always a solution to a hidden negative meaning. In other words, so when people get optimistic, it's almost like they don't even realize they actually had an unconscious pessimistic thought. And the optimism is your way of like kind of coming up with a new solution, a fixer, or whatever. Right. So the ego will just create fantasy or fear. That's the ego's purpose. And it's all to distract from the truth of the love that you are. And one meaning you could give it that you don't have to take is if you were still holding these wounds and you got in a relationship without looking at these wounds, there's a chance a meaning could be that relationship would inevitably either not be the truth or you'd have to heal the wounds. So that relationship could fall apart too, because if the relationship showed up to like bury your false meaning that was actually sitting on top of the truth that you're loved, right? Then God has to take that relationship away to get you closer to alchemizing the real thing. In other words, at this state, a relationship in this moment could be an addiction that stops you from healing this thing. It could keep your focus on him and the joy there. That's such a high joy that gives you an excuse to not look at this thing that will have to come up later.
Mm.
So basically what I'm saying is, just so everyone knows, everything we don't look at now will have to come up, and it'll come up louder later. There's things that we can see are there, right? And then we often go, forget it. And then it comes up later. And it'll come up until we finally decide, I'm going to hear and find the real truth.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of that like already happened, and I kind of chose that because 2 years ago I left a relationship because I didn't feel like it was to my highest.
Mm-hmm.
And after that I have been thinking like, was that a mistake? Was that the best I could get?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like always questioning, like you say, we should have tens, like, but now I question if like maybe I can't get somebody that good if
Well, I'll offer you something. It's very possible the egoic structure can't get something that good,
mhm,
because the ego will always sabotage what it wants. Even when you said, I want to break up to him, the ego then said, was that the right decision? The ego
mhm,
will always go back and forth on which way to go,
yeah,
right? The ego will always go back and forth. It's constantly going, was that the right thing? Was that the right thing? It literally thrives on fixing a circumstance. And
mhm,
then once it fixes the circumstance, it goes, was that the right fix? And so even if you, let's say the ego kicked in and said, was that a mistake? And you got him back, then I just want you to know what would happen probably.
mhm,
You would then go, is this a mistake?
yeah,
And if you let the ego in charge, you might break up again.
yeah,
And then the ego goes, I can't die. So I have to stay occupied. I have to stay employed. So I will again question it, or I will find another guy just like him. Right.
mhm,
Or I will use optimism to not die. Like, oh, this will put me to an alignment with the one, but the ego's still running it. So it still keeps the unworthy you, that keeps a fantasy over here. Right. And it
mhm,
goes this, this, this. So just so you know, it's very possible that you will, if you found the right person and the ego stays in charge, the ego will be scared because it will be exposed, which
mhm,
actually means your soul will be seen and the ego could go. But if you're scared of being fully seen, then the ego will sabotage this, right? Because anything that kills the ego is death to the ego. And if you think you're the ego, it's death to you.
yeah,
Isn't that crazy? So
yeah,
the soul goes, how about we find ourselves first and what we are, because I want you to know something. Even though a relationship can help you find yourself if it's truly the right one and expansive, there is no relevance to if you are in a relationship or not having anything to do with if you're loved.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
Yeah. I feel that, and I know it's true. But I just keep, like, I don't know, yearning that to some kind of stuff still.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want a guy to come and fix me or heal me or anything, but I think life is much more fun and easier when you have like somebody on your side to just like,
Yes.
yeah, share stuff with, and yeah.
So let me ask you this question. I'm going to ask this more and more throughout the rest of this, but I want to ask you something. I totally understand, and I'm absolutely not denying life is more fun when you have the right partner. It can be amazing. But for some people, it can also be more fun single for a while too.
Yeah.
But I want to go even higher for a second and say sometimes there's what God also wants too. And what God wants usually is a healing of the false you and a deep connection to it. Because it goes, I know how to do this, I know how to run this. So sometimes God will say, I know that there's truths and you do want this thing, and I know you really would be happy with that. And sometimes God says, but I need to heal this thing first. So you can tell that's happening when you just kind of look at what your circumstances, right?
Yeah.
So a question that can change our lives is if we go, okay, I know that I want a thing to happen. I know that I want things to go this way. What does God want right now? And what would be the highest truth of what God wants for you right now?
Mm. Yeah, that's a hard question.
Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think God is saying, I want everyone to really hear this for a second. Do you think God is saying, I really, really want Susan to find a man so she can prove to herself that she's truly lovable? To really
No.
think of God saying that. I want
Yeah.
Susan to find a relationship because right now, Susan is not lovable. She's not deserving, and she only will be when she finds a relationship. Is that God talking?
No.
Right. So it doesn't that make no it makes no sense, right? I want, like, is God saying, I want Susan to see that she's lovable because right now she's not. And it will be redeemed to her how lovable she is finally when a man says it. Because she's not lovable now. It's only when a man says, I love you.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you actually think from a higher situation, boy, we have to clear out this lie?
Yeah.
Because Susan would actually trick herself into she's only loved because she's in that relationship.
Yeah.
Everyone can take their situation or what they want and think, is God saying that? Right? Is God saying, you need to know you're not loved now, and you will be when you get enough in the bank, or your circumstance goes the way you want, or you get in the relationship? Really think in your circumstance right now. All of you, feel free to ask this. What is God saying right now? And Susan, what would you say in your situation? God is saying right now, and it might not be literal God saying all this, but like what's possible as far as a meaning that could be here if we ask the highest that we can find right now and say, what are you trying to offer me? What comes up for you in that?
I think he's offering me to like truly be myself and show it to those around me.
That's a cool answer. That's definitely higher. And when you give it that meaning, and I bet we could find even higher, but when you give it that meaning, let me ask you something. What level of stress and tension and pain do you feel?
Hi.
High. So we have the same situation. When the ego situation definition kicks in, the ego says, I'm alone. So I need to find someone because I'm unlovable. I'm unwanted. I'm not needed. Right? If we have the same situation, I'm alone, God must be saying, what is it?
What I said?
Yeah, yeah. If we say I'm alone, so God must be saying what shows up?
That I should be myself and show it.
Beautiful. What would even be, is there even more? Like ask deeper. Everyone feel free watching this to ask deeper. My situation is this. What's God saying? Ooh, really feel that. And really don't grab too much on the ego and be like, yeah, yeah, what's God saying? But the truth is, like, what if God's saying actually the truth? And what if the ego's the lie? Like, what's God saying? So what's the highest meaning you could find right now? We'll listen as deeply as we can. I bet we could go even farther, but I'm not dating anyone right now. I'm not married. God might be showing me.
That I still am love and I can love.
Yes. That's does, and then what does that feel like?
Feels like not the easy answer.
Mm,
It feels high, but it also feels scary.
yes. So who does it feel high to?
My soul,
Yes. And who does it feel scary to?
my ego,
Then this is a meaning we should look at. Because which one would we rather learn to live in?
the soul.
Yes. Because working and living in the ego isn't working. It's where your suffering is. And the meaning that the ego gives things is the suffering, not your circumstances nearly as much. Some circumstances, yes. I'm not dismissing if you live in an area that doesn't have water and, survival things. That's not what I'm talking about. That's horrible and needs to be taken care of. But the amount of circumstances we have that we give a meaning to, the meaning is where the suffering is, not the circumstance. And this is an opportunity to go, okay, I want what God wants for me, because the ego literally doesn't want what God wants for you.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
The ego actually doesn't want what God wants. The ego
no,
wants the opposite of that.
yeah,
It wants to keep the suffering going so it can stay employed.
yes, yes,
So we could right now go find a guy and be so excited about him and cover up these wounds and then literally be like, I am lovable because he said it. Right. And then all the deeper, we almost became connected fully to God is pushed away because you have a circumstantial high that you've given a good meaning to. You've given an egoic good meaning, right? So it
no,
gives a good egoic. Now I'm loved because of him. So now if he turns his back, walks away, doesn't like you anymore, you can go back to much more pain and go, well, I'll find a new guy, and out of that pain, get on a dating site and rush into something. You know what I mean? Like, and keep this wound buried. But what you just said was profound. If I give what God wants is what I want, then the ego will die. Like what God wants is actually the truth. That's why it feels so good.
Yeah.
Right? Like one of the reasons we feel so much pain in certain things is we're steering farther and farther away from our home of God. That's the source of our suffering. And when you finally go, okay, the circumstances, I'm currently not married. So God must want that for a reason, because God is helping me merge with God. And I can choose to merge with God, or I can fight it and get my circumstance how I want it and stay separate from God, get it really how I want it. I might even get farther from God, right? And then feel the addiction of the thing, but like let that cover up the immense pain inside of disconnection, right? So what if we decide today what God wants is what I want?
Yeah. Feeling a bit of resistance.
Isn't that amazing? What you feel resistance to, I don't want what God wants for me,
Yeah.
because you believe that what you want for you is better than what God wants for you.
Yeah.
What a lonely feeling that must be. Do you think that's more the reason you feel lonely than you're not physically living with someone?
Yeah, I think so. Because I've been feeling a kind of loneliness that I never felt before, and yeah, it feels deeper.
Yes. And but isn't it amazing to go, oh, the factor of my loneliness isn't that I'm married or not.
Mm.
The factor of my loneliness is I'm choosing separate from God and needs something to blame. So the ego keeps sly and gives you a circumstance. It's not because of being separate from God. Don't look at that. That's the ego. The ego is like, don't look at merging with God because I'm dead. Right. So instead, it must be blame on a relationship falling apart, or me leaving someone, or maybe I can, because I left him, find guilt because I chose it, versus having some it's his fault, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if we say this, and you have to ask yourself if it's true? I would offer you to even ask yourself if it's true before you say it. What happens if we say, because I'm going to say it, I want what God wants for me and for the world? Because I will suffer every day. I want what I want and not what God wants. I will even suffer on the days that I get everything I want. That's not what God wants. I notice there's days where I get what the ego wants and I am high, like I'm really high, like excited, like a
Yeah.
child, and I'm totally distracted. And I'm not in my Eckhart Tolle, will see, about life. I'm in my life is good now because I got my circumstances how I want it. And I find myself to be chaotic and crazy and needier, even if I get what I want, more addicted to more of what I want. Right. So I just want to point out, even when you get what you want, if it's not what God wants for you, but it's what you want, you will still suffer. And the thing you want will eventually collapse. So you'll find the darkness in what you don't want. But if we just
Yeah.
let go of what the I, which is not even an I that's true, it's an ego, preventing trauma from coming to light. What happens if you say, because I do, I want what God wants for me and for the world? What happens if you say that?
I want what God wants for me.
Is that true? I mean, do you feel
I don't
yourself?
know, it feels scary
Yeah.
because I'm scared it's like something totally different than what I want or my ego or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But what you want has caused so much suffering.
Yeah.
So why are we, isn't that weird? I get it, but why are we so scared of that? Right? What you want, even when you got it, has caused suffering.
Yeah.
So isn't it weird that we're scared to relinquish what we want for what God wants? Because we trust more what we want, yet we have total evidence that getting and losing what we want is just intense suffering.
Yeah, because if I give it over to God, I feel I lose control. I know I don't have control, but it feels like you have some control, you know?
Yes. So
So
you
if
lose you lose some of the feeling that the ego has control, because you said it even better. You said, I don't really even have control.
yeah, I know that, but I still cling to what I think is some control.
Yes, I get it. I get it. And isn't it funny? It's not.
Yeah, I know. I know.
It's like we'd rather stay in a prison with the illusion of control than be freed from it with the release of control.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, it's almost an attachment. Okay, at least I feel like I can control and protect myself and come up with solutions, but I'll stay in prison forever.
Mhm.
But at least I feel like I can control, even though I have no control.
Yeah.
What if we just take that in? I have no control. Like, really, like, let's take that in. Even when we get every circumstance how we want it, there's still fear you'll lose it. So I have no control is true.
Mhm. I know. But that gives me a lot of fear,
Well,
just thinking that.
that would be the fear that's coming up is the byproduct of it on the way out, because you're finally owning what's true. The
Mm.
truth will set you free.
Yeah.
So what happens if we just say that for a second? I have no control of what happens
I have no control of what happens
ever.
ever.
You got to hear that the right way, because I can see people thinking, well, we still make choices, we still do these things. I get it. But hear from a deeper place how much
Mm.
the ego is creating, that it is control based, it has control. We don't have control.
No.
Allow yourself to be held in that for a second. And maybe a reason you're so scared to let go of control is you don't understand how much God has for you.
Mm.
You don't trust or know or have any evidence of what life would be like without the attempt on that control,
Yeah.
which isn't even control. It's just an attempt to keep God away.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
Right? So take a deep breath in. What happens if we say, and we mean the ego, I have no control?
I have no control.
What if we say this too? And God wants me to have no control.
God wants me to have no control.
So God can help,
Oh, God can help.
and God can heal me,
And God can heal me.
and God can show me true love.
And God can show me true love.
Would you like to be married right now, or would you like to know true love? Which could mean married also, but right now, do we want marriage, which is a way to find love? Maybe. Or do we want love?
True love,
Because that was your question.
for sure.
And that question was what you asked, and probably why it got voted to the top. Because your ego wants a relationship. You want love.
Yeah.
So I feel like God asked that question.
Mm.
And that question got you voted to the top.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it would have got voted if you asked what the ego's asking. How can I find a relationship so I can feel
Mhm.
loved? This is
Yeah.
point blank. How do I find my way back to love?
Yeah.
Well, cut out the middleman. That love is only through that. Yes, when you're moving towards your expansion and you see something that will help you move towards it, that's great. But for right now, it goes, hey, I'm working on you.
Yeah.
And I need you right now to know you're loved, even if you don't have anyone.
Mhm. Yeah.
And also don't think through the old construct of a relationship that's having someone, because you also have the whole world.
Mm. That's
So
good.
does that feel good?
Yeah.
So isn't that weird? Same exact situation, but you feel good now.
Yeah.
So is the factor ever the situation, or is it the meaning, everybody? And what happens if we give something no meaning other than like the meaning of this is moving me towards God? Really ask yourself that, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want your circumstance to go the way you want it, or do you want to know God, and do you want to have God live through you? Do you want to end your suffering and go back to love? It's amazing to watch the circumstance not change, but your happiness can,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, I can feel how when you finally go, I want what God wants, how ego will go, well, it's not saying it wants what it wants. You know what the ego could really say that would help so much that your soul? The ego is really saying, I'm horrified. The ego has a bunch of wants to block from the fact that it's horrified. And it's horrified that it will be discovered that it's not the truth.
Yeah.
So it's got to keep every fantasy going because it's not the truth.
Mm.
What's here right now?
I'm sitting wondering, like, how can I know really what God wants from me?
Hmm. So that sounds to me like there's a belief that you have to see it and see the plan too before you get along with what God wants for you.
No, I'm kind of wondering more like how to getting more in contact with it, like
Mm,
to not fight the
okay.
other side.
Yeah. Well, take a deep breath in and check this out. Tell me what's here right now. All the fighter and all that energy will pass as you accept the higher, just so you know. All the one that's like, how do I get there? How do I whatever? The more you just keep accepting, discovering what's true, owning what's true, choosing what's true, not grabbing things that fuel the lies, the more that the one that's struggling for survival and protection will fall apart. What's here right now?
But how do I know what's true?
Hmm. Well, that's what I was kind of saying before, too. Do you have to know that it's true from a mental? I want you to ask from a deeper thing.
Mhm.
Your mind will never know if it's true because the one that's trying to know it's true is the ego. So it's got to convince you that your source and your connection to source is not true. Ask your body what's true. Ask your body, is it true that you're loved when you are finally in a relationship? And you're not if you're not in one. Is that true?
No.
How do you know? How do you know that's not true? Like what? Like, do you hear how the mind wants? If I go to the mind, it goes, how do I know? Okay, I'm asking you. You just said no. but you knew it. Is it even explainable how you know it?
No, it's just kind of a deeper knowing.
We want to go to that deeper knowing. That's where you start knowing things without being able to explain how you know it. Because the real truth is not even explainable. The truth of what you are is so beyond words that humans created and language and describing. That's why it's so sacred. Because as you start to know and you connect to what you know, it's not something you can convince someone of, you know,
Yeah,
because you can't teach this level of knowing mentally and through words. There's something you just connected to that you just know.
yeah,
And you don't have to prove it to anyone, and you don't have to explain how you know it, and you don't have to shrink it into some knower that understands. You can't shrink this knowing into your understander,
no.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what one thing this also is uncovering is there's a huge difference between knowing and understanding.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like there's what you know to be true, and this is beyond what you're the understander wants to make sense out of it and get
Yeah.
evidence and proof
Yeah.
and try to, okay, but what if we started to live from the knowing? Like anyone could take their circumstance and be and make mental sense out of it and understand this is good or bad. But if you go to knowing, your knowing goes, by the way, past circumstances. Your knowing says, I know you're loved. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. So if you ask your circumstances mental thing, it's going to be very different than if you go to the knower that just knows. And if I ask you to connect to what does it know, what does it say? Everything's okay. Everything's perfect. You are love. What does your knower say?
That everything is the way it's supposed to be right now.
Did you notice that the understander would need to add all these caveats because this will be good later or because the right guy will show up, right? The understander wants to take your knowing and shrink it down to circumstances. Sometimes people will go, well, I know everything's perfect because if I hadn't had that, this wouldn't have happened. Okay, that's a mental understanding that shrinks everything's perfect is always the truth into a mental. I want your mental and the understander to have no job right now and for you to just rest in the truth. I understand this because versus I know. No dialogue needed. What do you know is true? Life is moving you into what you know is true.
But I just am love.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It's all I need.
Now, for a second, it's possible some understander old energy could kick in. Let it, but let it rest on your bed of you, which is love. In other words, the understander isn't you. The I know I'm love is you. The only problem is you've been identified with the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And you've outgrown your understander.
Mm-hmm.
In a meditation yesterday, I said, we're like a size 11 foot trying to jam into a size 5 shoe,
Yeah.
right? Your understander is like the size 5 shoe that we fight to be in. But what's happened is our soul has outgrown that shrinking capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's asking us to move to our knowing.
Yeah.
So that God you is more you.
Mm.
The understander is what you thought was you, but is really nothing.
Yeah.
The question is, could you have the courage to wear a size 11 shoe if you're a size 11 soul now?
Yeah, that's exactly the word I was thinking of, because it feels like it takes a lot more courage than to just keep going with the small signs.
Now let's look at that for a second. How weird is it? How weird is it that it takes a lot of courage to receive that you are love? Isn't that weird? To receive that everything's perfect, everything's okay, and you are love
Yeah.
is scary as hell to the ego.
Mm-hmm.
That's how dark the ego is, or evil.
Yeah.
It's here. The ego is here to run from unconditional love.
Yeah. Ah, that was good. I feel that's exactly what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running. I'm running, and but inside all I want is unconditional love.
Which you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to shrink it down to a thing you earned and
Yeah.
quantify and shrink unconditional love, which is all you are,
Yeah.
into a teeny thing so that you're not love, but now got it through this relationship or through this circumstance, or for some people through enough money or through an outcome they want. Like
Mhm. Yeah.
it's weird. But what we're
Yeah.
scared of is that we are just love. This whole thing is just love, that
Mhm.
all you are is love.
Yeah.
But do you think you're on this planet to get into a relationship to prove to yourself that you're lovable? Or do you think you're on this planet to learn and discover that you are love and let it form in whatever relationship wants to later or not or whatever? What makes more sense?
To discover I am love, of course, and to
Yeah.
spread love and just be in love. Yeah.
Yeah. So weirdly, we're not even committing to a practice to like learn that we're just love. We're committing to just the truth that we're love. It's not like we're earning it, or like even the ego will want to earn this truth that you are already loved, you know?
Yeah.
But I want to just offer you to receive right now. The truth is that you're love.
Mhm.
And the lie is that you need to earn love.
Yeah. I think that is like a childhood pattern that I need
Mhm.
to earn love.
So it's not you.
No.
So that's true. It is a childhood pattern. But I think you're too connected to love to even have to figure out where it came from. I think your consciousness is too high. And I think you don't need to do all the work and where did they come from? And you can. But the more you just receive and bask in that you are love, the more it'll just bring up and spit out whatever isn't true.
Mhm.
So it'll just show you childhood stuff and it might do that, but you don't have to search for it. You
Mhm.
just receive that you're love.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah. And allow yourself for the if a, let's say a person for whatever 40, 50 years did get used to shrinking their foot to that's a size 11 to fit in a size 5 their whole life, and then eventually are put in a size 11 shoe to match their foot, they will probably panic and go, no,
Yeah.
I'm so used to this
Mhm.
that just being comfortable is horrifying.
Yeah.
Just being loved is horrifying.
Mhm.
I only know me working through a constant too small of a shoe.
Yeah.
So it might need a month of just receiving
Mm.
this fits. It fits now for your soul to actually rest in the actual truth that you are love and not shrink it to when I am in the right relationship because I'm not lovable. When I'm in one that loves me, then I am. No, we just sit uncomfortably in how comfortable this shoe is.
Yeah.
You're just love. It's a practice to accept it. And there's a lot of egoic practices to leave it.
Yeah.
After, what's that?
Yeah, I feel that.
So, what would be some ways, like in the next 24 hours after this call, that you could receive the shoe that fits?
Yeah, just to allow it and sit with it, not running from everything.
This is why, when people say, so I just do nothing, can you see how you just doing nothing would be the most productive thing you could do
Yeah, I see that.
versus
And that's
fighting?
what scares me the most, not doing anything.
Yeah. But that's because the ego knows it'll die if you just
Mm-hmm.
relax.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Last night, Amber and I just lied down on a trampoline in the dark. We have a net around a big trampoline and we just looked at the stars.
Mm.
It was the most productive doing nothing ever. Because when you finally do nothing, you're letting God in.
Yeah.
A lot of our doing, almost all of our doing, is to keep God away. Like we're like, I'll find the date to prove that I'm loved or whatever. And everyone has different. I'll prove that I'm loved through the money. I'll prove that I'm loved through the circumstance or having my opinion heard or whatever. And when you finally just do nothing, you're letting your foot relax into a size 11
Yeah.
shoe that matches your soul, because it's time for you to align with your soul more than the ego.
Yes.
Want to walk me through the next 24 hours or do it like it's past tense? You could do a little Kalegoing. You could be, I remember you allowing yourself to be uncomfortable with finally being comfortable, finally being loved, until you finally acclimated to how insane it would be to re-put your foot into a size 5 shoe. What do you think? How did you do it?
Yeah, I just think I sat with it, sat with myself, slowing down and just having courage to feel whatever's coming up and not run from it. And just accept what's coming.
Mm.
Yeah, just be with God, nature, slow pace day.
And any pain that comes up, you just got present and let be heard, right? And you created a portal through the truth of what you are for the lies of what you're not to come to light.
Mhm.
You became this amazing bed of love. And the little girl who has fought every day to fix the belief that she's not loved could rest in you.
Mhm.
Do you remember that?
I feel that.
Mm. And it might be a couple days of feeling like both amazing and also a little withdrawals, because you're going to watch the ego search for evidence of love outside of you.
Yeah.
That's its job.
Mhm.
But if you want what God wants for you, you're going to start merging with God.
Yeah.
What does God want for you?
Unconditional love. Just to feel safe in that.
God is so loving. God even gave you the free will to avoid God up until
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have it, but we can finally go, that is a road that has led to nowhere every time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Feel free to just rest for a second and
Mm.
that
I'm
your
gonna
love.
turn some lights on. It's getting dark here in Norway. I
Sure.
see.
Yeah, it's getting brighter here because it's morning, so I should turn the lights off at the same time. It's not my best work. Yeah, Amber said I wouldn't close with it. It's perfect that you turned the light on after that revelation.
Yeah.
Very symbolic.
Yeah. That's true.
Because now you're in the light
Yeah.
in all ways. This
That's
calm you
awesome.
feels very safe, very magical, very loving, very lovable. All right. It's very open and present. It's beautiful. Sometimes it's time for us to just access the God us for a while and then see what the circumstances end up being later. You'll get
Yeah.
to a place where you'll feel so much love that I'm sure a relationship will form, but you'll feel loved either way.
Yeah.
And if the relationship happens, you don't feel more loved. It's just the match to how much love you feel. If the relationship leaves, you don't feel less love.
Yeah.
It's just love is love. We release control. Doesn't it feel good to release control?
Yeah. Yes, it does. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question.
That was scary.
Yeah. It was such a good question. It's one of the highest questions we can ask. Like everyone just think of the difference in the questions. I want you to notice how painful or freeing a question can be. If you ask why me, what happens to you? Why does this always happen to me? That question will always have a dead end that won't feel good. If I ask what can I do, it feels better, but your consciousness is still too high. That's like a size 7 shoe. But your soul's still a size 11 and it's going bigger than that. So, what am I is higher? How can I return to love is very high. What's here is very high. And then it starts being no questions because you go to this I know, it doesn't have questions. The knower doesn't have questions. It's just up to us to decide to have the courage to move into this knowing and let it just remove the one that wants to be separate from God. Because do you want to be separate from God?
No.
No, you want that. The real, unconditionally loving truth of the now, God. We suffer because we try so hard to fight from that we're separate from it. And that's why for people, they might stay separate from it and get the circumstances they want and let that circumstance be a high that's big enough to deny them the truth. It's like they did a drug, like they did heroin or something like that. So they're so high, they don't have to feel the lies inside. But those things that are separate from God are lies. There's no truth to them. All you have to do is investigate them and they collapse. So, do you receive your love?
Yes.
Tell me what you did this next week to receive your love.
What I did next week, I was trusting more and I was investigating more truth. Just feeling deep down what is the truth. And just relaxing on finding love part, just letting it come naturally and receiving it.
Hell yeah. I loved that. It didn't even require that many words, and it had so much power. You just opened us all to the real truth. We want to be connected to God, and we want what God wants. So when your circumstance are going not how the ego wants, know that life is going. Just say, I want what God wants. Then you move into a surrender. You release the illusion of control that you never actually had in the first place, which
Yeah.
also is the illusion of control is also the illusion I'm by myself. Because if you want control, you're in charge. And if you're in charge, you're by yourself.
Yeah.
All right. You run the show, not God. So that's what makes you feel alone. So if we instead go, oh man, I release control. I connect to this higher me, that God you is you. The ego you is nothing. Then choices will still be made, but they're from love. They're from higher.
Yeah.
They're from magic. And you'll be shocked at what comes into your life. I'm proud of you for receiving this.
Thank you.
Yeah. You have the courage to receive it. Feel that softness. You're in a size 11 shoe right now.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I just want to stay here.
Yes. I want you to choose to stay there.
Yeah.
You're going to feel moments kick in that are going to look at that tempting size 5, shove your toes in, break them in the wrong shoe energy. But I'm going to dare you to just bask in the truth of being held for a while. And it'll start purging the desire for the size 5 shoe.
Yeah.
Man, did I love this hot seat.
It was amazing.
Because you're receiving, I'm going to open the door to receiving more. Would you mind the match? Because you're so receptive to receiving and giving right now, love, because you are love. So would you mind if we had you receive some more?
Okay, that's fine.
This was a phenomenal hot seat. And so I'm going to open the chat up here and request the people watching, please share with Susan what you got from this, what you're going to do with it, and how Susan changed your life, what you loved about Susan, and what you learned from it, and how you're going to apply it to you. What are you feeling right now, Susan?
Wow, I'm just overwhelmed. It's just amazing.
Look at you resting in this new deep level.
Yes, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
I hope you got something awesome from that hot seat. And if you want to work with me in the future, either on the Absolutely Everything Pass, do a one-on-one, or grab our course, The Angel You Forgot About, go to kylecease.com/unlocked and see all the different choices of things that we have. There's nothing over there.